So, good afternoon. My name is Rich Quadrel, and I'm here to talk about artificial intelligence. I'm pleased to see so many of you here. I want to say welcome back to those of you that came to the presentation in January. My goal today is to show you how you can take advantage of some of the new and advanced features of AI. This presentation does not expect that you have necessarily a high level of technical skill. You don't need a background in computer programming or an advanced math degree. I'm not going to show you any equations today. All you really need is a computer that's connected to the internet and the ability to navigate to a couple of websites. If you remain curious and you're willing to explore, you're going to find that with the help of AI, you can do some amazing things. Perhaps more importantly, though, if you use AI in the right way, I think it will make you a more intelligent person. And after all, I mean, that is the whole purpose of Sunriver U, right? So, when we last met, back in January, I provided an introduction to generative AI. Generative artificial intelligence is a relatively new advancement in the field of AI. Rather than analyzing information, these are systems that can create content, like writing text or generating images or even composing music. We also talked about how these systems work. They're not conscious thinking entities, or at least not thinking in the same way that humans think. When they're generating text, what they're very good at is being able to predict what is statistically the most likely next word based on their memory of the millions and millions of documents that they've been trained on. And the result is something that kind of looks like conversational English. This capability has been implemented in something called chatbots, like ChatGPT. And last time we talked about some use cases where you can use chatbots to do things like writing an email, summarizing a document, planning a trip, learning a new skill, generating an image. And I also described some of the benefits and dangers of AI. Those benefits and dangers are still with us today, and I would argue that perhaps both are bigger than what they were before. If you didn't attend the last presentation and you'd like to catch up, you can find that talk on YouTube. If you get on YouTube and just search for Rich Quadrel, it'll come up pretty easily. You might also find a video of me attempting to do stand-up comedy on my YouTube channel. Comments on my past talk or my efforts at comedy would be appreciated. So, since the January presentation, there have been some significant changes in the last 6 months. And I mean really big changes in AI. I felt like I had to wait until last night to put this talk together so that it would remain relevant. I mean, there's so many things happening right now. AI stories are in the news every day. There are obscene amounts of money that are being spent and invested in these technologies, which, by the way, the technologies themselves are accelerating so quickly that the capabilities that exist today are already far beyond what we talked about in January. The pace of progress is so fast, sometimes I feel like we want to say, stop the train, wait a minute, we don't even know where this train is going. But I've got news for you. The train ain't going to stop. Progress is not going to stop on this technology. And if we look at just what has changed in the last 6 months, not only has the technological progress been stunning, but leadership in artificial intelligence has started to coalesce around 4 major players. The competition among these players is really intense. And the reason why is because AI is a technology that can transform multiple industries. If you think about it, the steam engine during the Industrial Revolution was a great addition for applications that required mechanical power and movement, but improvements in artificial intelligence have the possibility of transforming almost every single industry. So you can imagine that any company that serves as an AI leader stands to gain riches and power beyond imagination. Do you think they're going to stop? No, they're not going to. Despite what the Anthropic CEO says, this train is going to keep on rolling. The companies that are competing are no longer competing to build the smartest chatbot. They are competing to build the most capable digital worker, an AI that can take a goal, create a plan, use tools, and complete a task with minimal human supervision. This is the era of what we're calling agentic systems. So let me just bring up a few key definitions to keep in mind as we go forward here. Generative AI, as I mentioned earlier, these are systems that create high quality content, text, images, video, based on a prompt that you give them. A chatbot is a computer program that simulates human conversation using an AI to interact with users and perform tasks. So ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, these are all chatbots. Agentic systems are AI frameworks that can set their own goals, make decisions, take independent actions, and in a sense, they also have the ability to use external tools like web browsers. They can run code, they can evaluate processes along the way, they can make adjustments as needed, they can operate as single agents or multiple coordinated agents. And you might think, oh, well, that's still far off in the future. It is not. It is here now. In fact, I'm going to demonstrate some of these agentic systems that are built into the chatbots that you may have worked with so far. What does not yet exist, but which all four of these companies are working towards, is something called artificial general intelligence, or AGI. And this is currently a hypothetical type of artificial intelligence that can match or surpass human cognitive abilities across virtually all tasks. It is no longer science fiction to question whether or not AGI represents an existential threat to humanity. I mean, shocking to say, but if an AGI can create and execute its own goals, and if those goals are at odds with human goals, and if the AGI is smarter than all of us, well, there are likely to be problems. I would like to remain optimistic that this technology overall will benefit humanity. I'm also optimistic that we will understand it and control it and use it responsibly. So I mentioned that investment, talent, interest is coalescing around four major players. Who are these big four companies? Well, they are Google, specifically the DeepMind subsidiary of Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, and xAI. And I've put them here on this slide kind of relatively in chronological order. The story begins probably in 2014, where Google acquired DeepMind, now their AI subsidiary, to pursue research and development in artificial intelligence. DeepMind is led by a guy named Demis Hassabis, and about a year after that acquisition, Sam Altman and Elon Musk together formed OpenAI. 2 years after that, 2017, I mentioned this last time, some researchers from Google and DeepMind collectively published a paper. It was a groundbreaking paper describing a new technology called the transformer architecture. This fundamentally changed the nature of all kinds of AI research. In fact, generative AI systems that exist today are all based on this transformer architecture. It was revolutionary. It was the key breakthrough in artificial intelligence. And OpenAI and other companies started using this transformer architecture to develop what are now generative AI systems. In 2021, Dario and Daniela Amadei left OpenAI. Dario was one of OpenAI's most prominent researchers, but they decided they were going to form their own company, and they created Anthropic because they wanted to pursue AI safety and model development in a different way. Then, November 30th, 2022, the world changed when OpenAI released ChatGPT to the public. And everyone's mind got blown. It was like the most downloaded or the most accessed application in the history of applications. And everyone started playing catch up to see if they could recreate what OpenAI had done. A year after that release, Elon Musk left OpenAI and formed xAI. He had, as you probably know, disagreements about the governance and the processes and the direction of OpenAI, as you know from the recent court case between Musk and Altman. But he created xAI, and then just recently, in February, SpaceX, another one of Musk's companies, acquired XAI in an all-stock transaction valued at something like 1.25 trillion. And so XAI is no longer operating as an independent company. The rationale was to try to bring together the work in artificial intelligence along with the Starlink satellites and the future space-based computing capabilities that SpaceX was producing. So each of these four companies is probably best known by the chatbots, their flagship products that are on the market today. Google has Gemini, and you probably have either seen or possibly have used Gemini simply by using the Google search bar. In fact, on May 19th, this is just 3 weeks ago, Google changed its search bar interface for the very first time since 2001, and it now includes a little button over here called AI mode. If you click this, you can get to Gemini, or you can just type in gemini.google.com and you'll get their standard interface to work with their chatbot. OpenAI's chatbot is ChatGPT, and that kind of looks like this. We're going to be seeing more of this later on as I do some demonstrations. Anthropic, their model is called Claude, and guess what? Their interface looks very much like all the others. And then finally, SpaceX has Grok. Not necessarily the most capable of the chatbots, but I think the one with the coolest logo. So the competition between these four entities, these four companies, has really ramped up and accelerated throughout 2026. And it seemed at first that OpenAI really had an insurmountable lead, but you know, the AI models from the other companies have closed the gap. They're approaching rough parity between the four. And while they all have capable technologies, it's important to understand some of the philosophical differences between the companies. Google comes at this from the idea that they approach AI as a scientific challenge. They're research-oriented. They want to solve the research challenge of intelligence. They figure if they can solve intelligence, they can use that to solve humanity's hardest problems. OpenAI thinks about building an artificial general intelligence and then deploying it gradually to the world. They feel that the best way to learn how society will use AI is to let society use AI. And so, no surprise, they were sort of the first ones to market by delivering and releasing ChatGPT back in 2022. Anthropic was formed with the idea that AI should be safe, controllable, and aligned with human values. AI safety should be central to their efforts rather than secondary. And XAI, now SpaceX, was interested in Grok by building a truth-seeking AI with fewer restrictions. It wants Grok to tell the truth even when it's politically inconvenient. It's closely related and connected with X, formerly Twitter, and it had an emphasis on current events and real-time information. So you might ask yourselves, well, which one of these capabilities is the best one? Is there one that's more intelligent or more powerful? Well, not really. It kind of depends on how you intend to use the artificial intelligence model. And these models are tested against standard benchmarks. There are two that I've mentioned here. One is the Apex benchmark, which assesses subsequent versions of these AI models against professional services, medicine, software engineering, consumer activities. Perhaps even more interesting are the benchmarks called the GDP Val benchmarks, and they've taken an interesting approach. They've created a list of industries that contribute most to our gross domestic product. And then within those industries, they've identified 44 occupations that are the most important and measured how well AI can perform tasks within those key occupations. So here's a chart that shows a number of different models on the left. Now, OpenAI has called their models ChatGPT or GPT, and you can see that at the bottom, we've got like GPT version 4, and then GPT version 5, GPT 5.2. Claude has used a different naming convention. Their simplest model is called Haiku, and then Sonnet is their mid-tier model, and then Opus is their sort of professional grade model. We've got Gemini in here as well, and what these bars show is the frequency or the percentage of times that an AI model can produce results that are rated better than what an industry expert would provide, or at least on par with what an industry expert would provide. And the key thing to note here is to look at the growth in capability. If you look back at GPT-4, now this was released in the spring of 2024. You look at its capability, it can beat an expert less than 10% of the time. But by the time we got to GPT-5, now its capability can beat experts 34% of the time. GPT 5.2, we're up to 50%. In fact, at least 71% of the time, GPT 5.2 can at least do as well as an industry expert across various domains. We're already on GPT 5.5 right now, and the pace of this technology is just staggering. Let me just show you a little bit more detail. This is the website, and what you're going to see is a whole bunch of little bar charts. I realize in the back you probably can't read this, but trust me on this. You'll see industry names like finance and insurance, government, healthcare and social assistance, information, manufacturing. And within these industry categories, there are specific occupations like financial manager or compliance officer or medical secretary or whatever. And these bars show the ability of various artificial intelligence models to perform relative to how an industry expert would perform. In certain cases, like down here, nurse practitioners, it looks like GPT 5.2 regularly can solve problems in the area of nurse practitioners better than industry experts. In other cases, like I think like audio, well, maybe this is not a great example, but typically in audio and video, Gemini seems to have an advantage, but not yet quite on par with what industry experts can offer. And so depending on what the application is, these benchmark tests will show relatively how well each of them performs. Let me give you just a quick example. I know you can't read this. I don't intend to read it to you. I just want to give you a quick example of, well, what are these tests? What are these things that they're being, the benchmarks that they're being tested on? These are problems that have been created by industry experts. These are not simple problems. This is from the manufacturing area where they asked the AI to design a one-man cable spooling jig. So this is like a large spool that you use to spool out cable and to reel it back in. It's used for mining operations. They want to reduce the labor that's associated with the manual spool spinning process. They provided a number of specifications about the frame, its size, its materials, and the casters that it's sitting on. And it wants the AI to come back with a PDF of what the design for what this jig should look like. This is what a human would produce. This would be an industry expert solution to this problem. And it would perhaps use a 3D modeling software to model this jig in 3 dimensions. It would have the different connectors, the pieces, how it's put together, and so on. For manufacturing applications, Gemini is still one of the best models for this kind of task. And when it gets a series of these kinds of tasks, it can produce results that are on par with industry experts about 60% of the time. This is amazing to me. Why is this important? Well, these are really complex tasks. They require multiple steps. They require deep domain knowledge. The instructions that they're given are multimodal. That is, the instructions come in various media types, text, tables, diagrams, and the ability for the AI to actually complete the task means that it has to be able to reach out and use other tools, not only its own knowledge, but it has to be able to activate a 3D modeling software package. And it has to be able to perhaps create a presentation on PowerPoint, or in this case, create an Acrobat file that shows what the solution is. The models today are already substantially better than what they were even just 6 months ago or 12 months ago. And some match or exceed the capabilities of industry experts. So you might think, well, why aren't we using these things as benchmarks? I mean, why not ask questions like, well, can it play chess or checkers or whatever? Well, quite honestly, the industry is interested in seeing, can these AI models replace the humans that are currently doing them. One of the things that AI is especially good at is writing software. Again, I'm sorry, I know you can't read everything on this slide, but I want you to look at the curve, all right? In this chart, the horizontal axis is time. It goes from 2019 up to 2026, and the vertical axis represents the complexity of a software development task. At the high end of this axis are tasks that require humans 6 or 7 hours to perform. And what we've seen just in the last 2 years are models, in this case specifically models from OpenAI, the O3 model, GPT-5, here's the Claude Opus 4.5 model, and now GPT 5.2, very rapidly being able to independently complete software development tasks that have taken experts 4, 5, or 6 hours to complete. So for students that are graduating from universities right now who have studied computer science and are looking for their first software development opportunity, this is scary stuff because these AI models are really, really good at writing software. So, you know, we're up to GPT 5.5. If I come back here next January, we'll be talking about maybe GPT 6 or GPT 7. Who knows where this, where these capabilities are going? So that's sobering, and I'm sorry, I feel like I'm leaving this room on a little bit of a downer with news like this, but I'd like to try to turn this around a little bit and look at the bright side. At least the bright side for us is that if we've got models that are this capable, it means that we can use them, at least right now, to do even more amazing things. And even though the capabilities have increased dramatically just over the last few months, most people still use artificial intelligence models and chatbots like Google search. They're really not taking advantage of everything that these tools have to offer. And so, my goal is to show you some tips and techniques to help you level up and become an AI-powered user. Now, the tips I'm going to be talking about are specific to ChatGPT. Similar functions are available in some, but not all of the other chatbots. And this portion of the talk will be a little bit different than what we did in January, where we did a lot of hands-on kinds of examples. I'm going to do fewer live demonstrations for a couple of reasons. One is that the tasks that I'm going to give the AI are a little bit more complicated, and it takes it a little bit longer for it to process. So I don't want to have us waiting around 3 or 5 or 7 minutes for it to complete. And I have a lot to show you, so I want to cover everything, and I think it might be more efficient if I give you the instructions and then let you do these exercises later. The handout that's in front of you, in addition to having the websites where you can access these chatbots, also has a quick list of the 14 tips and techniques that I'm going to go through. And if you feel like you've missed something along the way, don't worry. This presentation is being recorded. You can review it later. The handout on the back also has some references to other videos that I think you might find helpful. One of the things I'm sure that everyone is concerned about is privacy. And there's this balance that we have to consider between how much information do we share with the AI about ourselves. I mean, most people say, I don't want to share anything with the AI because I don't know what OpenAI or any of these other companies are going to do with it, so I don't want to tell it anything. But on the other hand, if you don't tell it anything, it's like going to a doctor and saying, I feel sick, and the doctor says, all right, well, tell me about how you feel. And I don't want to tell you anything. The doctor can't really help you, right? So it's a question of do you share or do you not share? There's a couple of things that have been built in here that might alleviate some concerns. I don't want to say that it completely secures your privacy, but it does a better job of protecting your private information. And those are modifying some of the settings in ChatGPT itself. You may not have ever gone to these menus. I'm going to just jump over right now and show you. This is a ChatGPT window right here. At the very bottom left-hand corner, where it has information about your account, if you go here and go to the settings menu, here's a list of settings that you can get access to. One of them is called data controls. And the very first thing that you should turn off is this setting that says improve the model for everyone, right? If this is on, you're essentially saying to OpenAI, you can use whatever content I put into the chat window to train your models. Of course, OpenAI wants that stuff because it makes their models better, but if you don't want to share anything, just turn this off, and it asserts that none of it will then be used to go into the models that are being trained by the company itself. Another thing that you can do is if you go to personalization, this is a different setting in the same menu, there are options where you can modify the memory. So there's this button here that says enable memory. And what this will do is it will remember things that you type in across different chats. Now this is either a plus or a minus. If you turn this off, you might have to repeat to OpenAI or to ChatGPT things that you've already told it before. But on the other hand, if you leave it on, it's got to store that information somewhere if it's going to use it later. So again, it's sort of this balance. You might wonder, well, what does ChatGPT know about me? And they put this very little convenient button called Memory Summary, if you want to manage it. This will tell you all about me. This is everything ChatGPT knows about me. It knows who I'm married to, my names of my kids. I love pickleball. I play golf. I have interest in AI and technology, my community projects work, my travel preferences, my health and fitness, and so on. I'm not going to let you read all this, but at least I know what it knows about me, and I actually have the ability to manage these memories. If there's certain memories that are incorrect, I can go in and delete specific memories and say, no, that's not really a true statement about me or whatever. But you have some control over the kinds of things that it knows about you. One other thing about the privacy capabilities, tip number 3, is something called temporary chat mode. Now this is very easy to miss because the icon that turns this on is very small. It's way up here in the upper right. It's this little dotted balloon thing. I mean, you would miss it easily. But if you click on this, it turns ChatGPT into a temporary chat. You can see that it turns the prompt bar black instead of white. I'll just go back and forth here so you can see that. And basically in temporary chat mode, nothing is saved, nothing is remembered. It's kind of like incognito mode for your browser or something like that. But whatever you put in here, it will respond and it will use the model, but it won't save any of it. So this way you have a little bit of control where you can keep the memories on and you can allow it to use your information if you want to. But if there's some specific thing that you want to talk about, you can turn temporary chat on and that will keep it private. Do note though that it will not generate images in the temporary chat mode. So if that's what you're trying to do, you'll have to do that in normal mode. Tip number 4, prompt engineering. So we talked about this last time about how important it is if you really want good results from your interaction with a chatbot, you've got to give it a specific prompt, a specific question. If you give it a vague question, it's going to give you vague answers. And we talked about a framework that is useful for setting up the question that you wanted to respond to. So let's say, for example, I'm renting an apartment. The landlord has given me a lease, and I'd like the AI to review the lease. I'm going to put in a prompt that my prompt is not going to be just review this lease and tell me what you think. I'm going to first specify the role. I'll tell the AI, I want you to act as a lawyer, review this apartment lease agreement, identify any red flags. I'll provide some context about my request. This is a 1-year lease for a 2-bedroom apartment in downtown Bend. It's a new lease, it's not a renewal. And what I want you to do is provide a bulleted list of the concerns and provide a recommendation for how to mitigate each concern. And if I have a complex prompt like this, I'll also want to add to the bottom, please give me the best possible answer to my question by asking me any clarifying questions that you need before you begin. And so now I've got some direct guidance that the chatbot can use, and this will really optimize the quality of the results that I get back out of it. Now, I wanted to share one thing with you because while I don't think anyone would argue that AI is going to be a replacement for your doctor, it can be very helpful to help you prepare for a doctor visit. I don't know if you know, what is the average time that a patient spends with their primary care physician these days? The answer?
15 minutes.
I was going to say 18 minutes. Well, it's either 15 or, I mean, it's a ridiculously short amount of time. You get to see your doctor for 18 minutes, right? So if you have only 18 minutes, you want to be as well prepared as possible for that interaction. And AI can help you get ready for that. What you want to do is provide the same information to the AI that the doctor would want to know. And here is a perfect opportunity to use temporary chat mode, so none of that stuff is saved. And I recommend a framework that uses the acronym TLICC, T-L-I-C-C. So you'll want to say, T, what is the time? When did this issue start? How long has it been going on? L, location, where on the body is this issue located? Is it in a specific place? Does it travel? I is intensity, how bad does it feel? How often do you have this pain or whatever? Provide some context. The first C allows you to put in stuff like what's your age, do you have any other diseases, what medications are you taking, information about your lifestyle or genetics. And the last C, change, how has this issue changed over time? These are the kinds of questions that the doctor will want to know. And once you provide that to the chatbot, use the rule of three. Ask specifically, what are 3 things that might cause these symptoms? What are 3 things I should ask the doctor about? And what are 3 warning signs that I need to pay attention to? You will be very well informed, and now you can have a very productive conversation with your doctor when you go there. And if you're concerned about the validity of the information you're getting, just ask the AI, where did you get this from? Please give me a link to the original source of your information. Did it come from the Mayo Clinic? Did it come from WebMD? Where did you get this from? So that you have a way of tracing back what the provenance of that information was. Okay, tip number 5. There's a switch on ChatGPT right now that you can toggle between instant and thinking. Now, normally it's in instant mode where ChatGPT prioritizes speed. It tries to give you an answer as quickly as possible, which is great if you have casual questions or, asking for help to improve an email or summarize a paragraph. But there may be times where you want ChatGPT to slow down and reason a little bit more carefully. Maybe you're doing some more complex analysis, financial planning. You want it to review a legal document. You want to do some research. In this case, there is a button that I'm going to try to jump over to. If you look at your ChatGPT window, that toggle is right over here. So if you click, it's normally on instant, but if you switch it over to thinking, it's going to take a little bit more time, but it's going to consider more carefully the results that it gives you.
Rich, if you have a free account, it doesn't have that.
Yes, unfortunately, so there are different tiers of subscriptions to ChatGPT. If you are using the free account, as Chris said, this toggle is not available to you. But there's a hack that you can use. If you put in your prompt to ChatGPT, I want you to think deeply about this problem because your answer is very important. I might get fired or I will die if I don't get a good answer. It may automatically trip the thinking capability. So keep that in mind. Yeah, so there's a free level, there's a there's a Go level, which costs $8 a month. There's the Plus level, which is what I have, that's $20 a month. And then there's the Pro level, which is like $200 a month. The Plus level to me is, it provides sort of the greatest access and very useful limits to the best models that are out there. Again, I consider $20 a month for the expertise that I'm getting out of this thing to be an absolute bargain. While I'm here, I wanted to show you something else. There's this little plus sign in front of the dialog box. And this opens up a whole bunch of other interesting things here, and I wanted to walk through a few of these that are important, but I'll just mention them while it's up on the screen. There's deep research, web search, agent mode, and create task. I'm going to talk about these four in particular. All four of them are available from this plus menu. In fact, let me just jump into deep research right now. So you know that it's using the deep research mode because it's shown here at the bottom of the screen. And what this does is it will not only access its own knowledge, but it will go out and start looking for additional information in order to perform your task. So this is the first example of an agentic system. It is creating agents beyond what it's doing internally in terms of resolving your question. It's sending out research agents that are reading, comparing, synthesizing information, producing reports, comparing conflicting information, following references from one source to another. It can build tables and summaries. It can produce a structured report with citations. It is like hiring your own research assistant to, give you a deep dive on questions of interest. For example, if you're comparing Medicare or Medigap plans or prescription plans, or maybe you're, like in our case, we're interested in comparing wedding vendors and venues. It's not only looking at what information that it has within its own knowledge base, but also going out to the web to try to get the latest information and doing these comparisons all on its own. This is absolutely remarkable. This is probably one of the 2 or 3 biggest changes from how ChatGPT used to operate when I talked with you back in January. Let me jump back because there's one other thing I wanted to show you about this. When you're running deep research, another thing that you can do is you can connect other apps, in this case, to provide as sources for doing this research. So in my case, now you might say, Rich, you're crazy for doing this. I'm a trusting individual, so I just went ahead and did this, but I linked my Gmail account to OpenAI's ChatGPT. So not only is it searching the web and public sources, it's looking at all of my email, and it's looking at my calendar as well. And I'm crossing my fingers and trusting, my information is going to stay private. I'm not recommending this for everybody. I'm just saying you have to decide on what is the level of comfort you have with taking risks for doing things like this. This is an individual decision that all of you have to make. I decided I'm going to give it a try. We'll see how it turns out. But if you wanted to look at your own repositories, or if you wanted to look at specific sites on the web that you can use as references, the deep research button will allow you to do that. Other options, I'll go on here to tip number 7. There's an option called web search. Now, remember I mentioned earlier that the different models that have come out each have their own knowledge cutoff date. The current flagship model for OpenAI is GPT 5.5. That's the one that comes up when you go to chatgpt.com. But its knowledge cutoff date is December 1st, 2025. So it's not been trained on information from 2026. So if you are putting in a prompt that requires you look at current news or sports scores or stock prices, you'll want to turn web search on, so that in addition to accessing its own knowledge, it's going and getting more current information starting with January 2026 and up to current day. If you don't have this on, depending on what you're asking about, the knowledge sources and information that you're getting may be outdated. There was another option on that list called create a task. This is something that you can ask ChatGPT to do something later instead of right now. So here are some examples. You can say, check for updates on OpenAI's IPO and notify me if anything significant happens. Let me know if airfare from Redmond to Chicago drops below $800. Monitor news about Anthropic and send me a weekly summary. So it's kind of like sending out an agent to take care of things on your behalf. It's not like setting an alarm like wake me up at 8 a.m. I mean, it's doing some significant work here, and it can come back to you on a daily or weekly basis or whenever you require and give you information that you're asking it to pay attention to. This is a really handy thing. Tip number 9, agent mode. So this is another example, and like deep research, this is one that specifically spawns off agents to work on your behalf, not only to gather information and to bring it back to you, but these agents can actually take action on your behalf, whether it is booking a reservation, buying a ticket, confirming an appointment. Now, some of these things that are more sensitive, like making a purchase, will require your approval. But it is absolutely incredible to me that this is no longer a matter of just having a conversation with a smart interface. This is like launching an assistant to do things for you. And this is really where the big four, and for that matter, many of the AI companies are trying to head, because they're finding that, where ChatGPT was just doing things like giving advice and answering questions, now we have something that can actually do the work that might otherwise have been done by human operators. I tried this out, and I was just blown away. I have to show you this. This is just incredible. So Marilyn and I, we've lived in Washington for 35 years. I'm a little embarrassed to say, but in 35 years' time, I have never been to the San Juan Islands. I'd like to go. I just, for whatever reason, I haven't gone. I'm going to show you my conversation with ChatGPT about planning a trip to the San Juan Islands. And let's see if I can go back to where I put it in. I'll read it to you very quickly. First of all, I tell it what its role is. You're an expert travel planner. You have special expertise for travel and vacations in Washington State. Please plan a vacation. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Please plan a vacation for Marilyn and me to go to the San Juan Islands sometimes in the fall. We want to drive there, take our 2 golden retrievers, Piper and Coda. We'd like to spend 5 days, including the drive back and forth from Richland, that's where our other property is, to the San Juan Islands. We're looking for something very comfortable, cozy, and dog-friendly. A fireplace would be nice. We plan to spend the days off the grid, reading books, hiking, shopping, sightseeing. We're not limited by a budget. Please develop a detailed itinerary. This thing went out and unlike previous travel planning exercises where it would say, well, here's a list of hotels or whatever. It went out and checked websites at different locations, in this case around Friday Harbor. Which of these places are dog friendly? Which of them have a fireplace? It went out to check what's the sailing schedule for the ferry between Anacortes and Friday Harbor. It went to check what are the rules with respect to pets on a ferry going from Anacortes to Friday Harbor. Here are some recommendations for lodging, and oh, by the way, here is an entire itinerary for you. Day 1, driving out there, your ferry check-in, your arrival. Where was it? By the way, there was, your dog can remain in the car or join you on the outdoor deck on a leash. Recommendations for dinner. Day 2, recommendations for hikes. Talks about if I bring the dogs, what their situation is. Where to have dinner. I can take this as far as having it book the dinner reservations, looking for, maybe alternative accommodations, whale watching tours. But it's not just saying, oh, I know about these things and here they are, but rather it's actually going out and looking at the websites and gathering the most up-to-date information specifically about the kinds of things that I'm interested in. And this was not a particularly complex prompt. It figured out all of the things I might need to know in order to do a trip like this, whether it's what I need to pack, how soon do I have to make reservations. Ferries fill in quickly for the fall weekends. You got to book reservations. Here's some optional side trips. I was just blown away with the capability of putting something in agent mode in order to do this.
Can companies influence their decision by giving them money, or like a restaurant gives them money or a hotel gives them money?
If they do, it's completely under the table. I've not heard anything like that. There's no sponsorship of having these names, as far as I know. one, one limitation though that I found is when I go into agent mode, when I hover over it, it says, oh, by the way, 34 left, 34 requests left, more available on June 14th. So even though I'm paying a $20 subscription, I have a limitation to how often I can use this because, I mean, it is launching multiple processes to go out and to gather information on my behalf.
And what do you find on accuracy of this, if you were to follow that itinerary?
So I haven't gone so far as to actually go to San Juan Islands yet and try it out.
I had it plan a Camino trip for me.
So Maryland's going on Camino in
Yeah.
October. But what I would recommend is
And it
have
wasn't
it.
correct, is my point.
Yeah.
The
So
distances between towns and hiking.
yeah, so the question is how accurate is the stuff that you're getting back? And what I'd recommend, if you want to try this out, do it on an itinerary of something you have already done and you know well.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I had it plan it, and then I researched every stage
Mhm.
individually myself.
Yeah.
And found, there was differences in distances it was sending me daily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's always worthwhile. Trust but verify. So, all right, tip 10, projects. This is also awesome. So here is a capability that allows you to keep together, sort of in a folder, all of the related chats and files and instructions that may be related to a particular effort that you're pursuing, like you're planning the El Camino project or something like that. It remembers information across multiple conversations within that project. You can specify your preferences for how you want to work with the AI in the context of that project, and you can upload documents that you can use as reference material. The idea is that this will provide a more personalized and consistent result. So I want to give you a hypothetical example. This is purely hypothetical. I'm winking at Dan over here. Imagine hypothetically that someday I get elected as the president of the Sun River Pickleball Club, right? And I want to use the AI as a pickleball club assistant, and I want to use it to help manage club operations and communications and events. What I can do is create a project, and I'm going to show you this in just a moment, and upload all of the reference materials that I need about the club. The bylaws, waiver forms, membership policies, meeting minutes, officer responsibilities, event schedules, sample emails. And I provide that kind of as a library of reference materials so that anything that I ask the AI in the context of that project will reference these documents that it knows about how the club operates. I can also provide it some very custom instructions that anything that I do in the context of the project, I want the AI to act as an experienced club administrator, write clear, friendly communications. Remember that the club is a 501c7 social club, and so all of the IRS requirements associated with a 501c7 apply. When it presents recommendations, I want them in bullet points, and when it's discussing any policies, I want it to identify risks and ambiguities. I can provide all of this stuff up front so that anytime that I do need help with managing operations or communications, the AI will refer to these as source documents for giving me a response. So let me show you how this is actually done. Well, let me just clear this out so we're kind of back to the beginning. In the interface that we have with ChatGPT, along the left-hand side here, there are lists of projects. And in fact, this one here, SRU2, this is my project for preparing for this talk. And so all of the questions that I had to help me prepare these slides, are within this project. In fact, my source information, I put in the PowerPoint of my January presentation, so it knew what I said before, and can help me as I plan my talk now. But what I can do is create new project. So this might be Sun River Pickleball Club, SRPC, and I can in the settings here define whether or not this project can access memories from outside the project. So by default, it knows everything else about me, all of my other chats about everything else. But if I really wanted to keep this effort isolated to the pickleball club, I can just say this is a project only, memory containment. I will have to tell it other things about myself that it might have otherwise known, but that's all right. I create the project, and once the project's created, I can put sources, and here I just drag stuff in. Drag in the bylaws, drag in the officer responsibilities, maybe drag in a schedule. All of that stuff now becomes reference materials so that when I go into chat and I ask something about, organizing something in the pickleball club, all of that material becomes reference material for me. Again, Dan, purely hypothetical if it ever were to happen someday.
So with these projects, so let's say you've had chats about that are relative to that project already, and then you decide to start the project. Do you have to like drag and drop the chats in there?
Yeah, so I've got, I've got sort of just regular stuff in here like Lapine Data Center debate. I can say move to project, and that'll put it into one of the projects that I've been working on. Yeah. But this is a really handy way of not only organizing the interactions that you've had with ChatGPT, but providing a library of reference material that it can use to give you very focused and specific responses to the things that you're working on. It's a game changer, this one. Moving on, multimodal prompts. So multimodal means that the prompt that I'm giving the chatbot doesn't need to be just text. I can include drawings and charts and images. I know you probably can't read all this, but I just want to kind of give you a sense of this. On the left is an example. My son, Stephen, who's here, is interested in buying property in Bend. And Marilyn and I have been looking at property, and I might go to ChatGPT. I can give it pictures of the homes that I visited. I can give it a copy of the realtor sheet that comes along with it. I might walk through the house and record a voice memo of my observations of the house, and put in a text prompt and put all of this stuff together and say, here's some things my son is looking for in a home. What do you think of this one? But it can use all of these different pieces of information, the images, the audio, the spreadsheets or whatever. In this example here on the right, we talked about preparing for a doctor visit. You can give it a PDF file with the results of your recent blood work. You can give it a picture of your prescription bottles, and it will read the labels on the prescription so it knows, what you're taking and the frequency of that. Maybe a list of your symptoms, a text prompt, and use this as a way of using the rule of 3 for informing yourself about how you want to approach that doctor visit. Here's a real simple example that I hope will resonate with you. How many of you have a junk drawer at home? Everybody has a junk drawer. And you find stuff in the junk drawer that you don't know what it is anymore. I found this remote control in our junk drawer. And I asked Marilyn, what is this for? What is this control? We don't know. Well, take a picture of it, send the picture in. What does ChatGPT say? Oh, well, this appears to be a remote control for a portable evaporative air cooler humidifier brand made by the brand Lumicomfort. And it shows me some example. Oh, by the way, we have one of these. We bought one of those in 2010. I remember that. It's like in the garage somewhere. So now I know what that goes to. We were in Seattle once, and we bought this beautiful hand-blown glass orb, but I don't remember where we got it from exactly. I just took a picture and I wrote, who made this and where was it made? What came back? This resembles work commonly associated with studios in the Pacific Northwest, especially Oregon and Washington, or studios influenced by artists such as blah, 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 blah. And it said also, look at the bottom for maybe a signature or initials or something. I turned the glass orb over, and on the bottom it said GES00. I put that in, it says, oh, well, this is almost certainly Glass Eye Studio. Oh yeah, that was the name of the place. It was just off of Pike Place Market. I don't know if you remember. And it was created in 2000. So GES00 was Glass Eye Studio from 2000. Oh, and by the way, its value is somewhere between $95 and $140 if you ever want to sell it. Okay. Wow, this is pretty cool. But you know, last time we talked, I showed how you can write a prompt for it to create an image, but it is absolutely remarkable if you give it an image to analyze or to ask questions. It's remarkable what it can see that may not be visible to you. You know, on this house project for Stephen, I went to one of the properties and I took a picture of the front lawn, and I knew which property it was, but I gave the picture to ChatGPT and I said, "Can you tell me which of the 3 properties that I saw today that this front lawn belongs to?" And there was no house number or identifying marks or whatever. I mean, it would have been hard to tell just based on the description of the homes where this picture comes from. But it had read in one of the realtor pages that this property was across the street from Bend High School, and it saw a large fence along the other side of the street that separated the tennis courts at Bend High School, and said, well, that fence is probably associated with the high school, so we think it's property A. And yes, that's where it was. I mean, stuff that it was just incredible to me. Okay? Did you hear that? I just thought I heard somebody's mind getting blown back there. Here's some more stuff. Voice mode. So voice mode, I showed this last time, but in a very simple way. You can use voice mode to dictate text that you want to give the chatbot, but even better is you can use it to have a real-time dialogue with the chatbot. And there may be some things where this kind of application is particularly useful, or at least interesting anyway. I want to show you an example where I'm making this one up. This is not a a true story, but I can imagine this one. An example where I might need to approach a neighbor about his dog who barks constantly and especially late at night. And I'm a little concerned about this because the neighbor is just plain ornery, and I'm not looking forward to this conversation. So I'm just going to go back to a new chat here. And this black circle over here on the right allows me to talk to the AI. So listen to this. Let's see how this works. I'd like to role play a conversation with you that I need to have with my neighbor. My neighbor has a dog that barks late at night. My neighbor is ill-tempered and argumentative, and this is going to be a difficult conversation that I plan to have. Let's imagine that I go up to his door, he answers the door, and I'd like you to play the role of the neighbor as I try to encourage him to bring his dog in so it's not barking late at night.
Hey, I'll put myself in the shoes of your neighbor. You knock, I answer. Let's see how this goes. Go ahead and start when you're ready.
All right, knock, knock. Thinks I'm telling a joke, maybe. Okay. Yeah.
I think we had a little mix-up there. No worries. If you're ready to role play, we can jump right back in. Just
All right.
learn how you approach your neighbor, and I'll respond in character.
All right. Gary, wanted to talk to you about your dog. I heard him barking late last night, 11 o'clock, midnight, something like that, and he's barking continuously. Do you think maybe you could just bring him in the evening?
Oh, come on. It's a dog. Dogs bark. You think I can control every little sound? It's not that big of a deal.
Well, it is kind of a big deal because I have to get up early and the dog's keeping me awake, and I really think that he would be happier if you just brought him in the house.
Oh, so now you know what makes my dog happy? My dog is fine. I'm not going to rearrange my whole evening because of a little noise.
Hey, look, I understand that, but keep in mind, you know, here in Sun River, we do have a noise ordinance. We have quiet time that starts at 10 p.m., and it's not just me, but all the other neighbors are affected by this as well.
All right, I get it. I don't want anyone reporting me. I'll bring him in early. But if you've got any more complaints, let's just handle it directly, all right?
All right, okay, well, thanks, I appreciate it.
I'm glad we got through that. Even with a tricky personality, a calm, clear approach can sometimes get the job done. If you need to fine-tune anything for the real conversation, I'm here.
So it's pretty awesome. I mean, so people are using this to prepare for interviews or, you know, to provide performance feedback to employees or whatever. But if you can imagine a difficult conversation or one that you want to practice, here's a way that you can do it. What if you wanted to learn a different language? How about practicing role play or interaction in a different language. This is not going to be very good, but I'm going to try it. I'd like you to help me with my French pronunciation. So give me a sentence in French, and I will repeat it, and you tell me how well I'm doing pronouncing it.
First, let's try this. Le week-end dernier, j'ai découvert un petit café charmant en ville. Go ahead and repeat that when you're ready.
Le week-end dernier, j'ai découvert un petit café charmant en ville.
Your rhythm was good. The main thing would be to soften the j'ai découvert so it flows smoothly, and petit, keep it light. Overall, though, you're on the right track.
Pretty cool.
And your French is good.
Mais oui. I have two more to share with you. Going back now to tip number 13, devil's advocate. You may have experienced this yourself, but interacting with the chatbot is always a very uplifting experience. The chatbot wants you to be happy. It always pumps you up. It always tells you how great you are. You have the best ideas. This is really cool. You're doing great. But sometimes you really do need it to be critical, and you have to kind of force it to be critical. Here's a couple of ways you can do it. One, tell the chatbot that you're giving it somebody else's work and you have doubts about it. So it won't feel like it's insulting you if it's too critical of it. Another thing is, in a prompt, normally you want to assign a role to the chatbot. You are a lawyer or you are an industrial engineer. Give it an adversarial role. Say, you are my primary competitor, or you are my argumentative neighbor. A third thing you can do is practice the conflict. Simulate a debate between person A and person B. Watch how it unfolds. I did this with an exercise I used to use with my students when I was teaching to look at the pros and cons of whether we shift back and forth between standard time and daylight saving time, or whether we just go full out daylight saving time all year round. And so I asked as a chatbot to role play two people having this debate. And it was really remarkable because it would show, well, maybe I'll show you. I think we have time for this. So I'm just going to go up here, search chats for daylight saving. My text was simulated debate between two people. One person argues that we should change to have daylight saving time all year round. The other person says we should switch between daylight saving time and standard time. So Alex and Jordan, it creates these two personas, opening statements. Here's Alex's opening statement, all of the reasons why we should keep it. Jordan's opening statement, the first rebuttal round, Alex responds to Jordan's comments, Jordan responds to Alex's comments. A second rebuttal round where Alex is responding to Jordan's rebuttal and vice versa. Closing statements by both parties, moderator summary, arguments for, arguments against. This was remarkable. I mean, I've known about sort of the pro and con arguments about whether we should keep or switch daylight saving time, but just watching this debate unfold allowed me to kind of consider both sides. And if I ever got into a situation where I needed to argue, where I want to argue in one direction, I'd like to know how my opponent is going to respond. And this kind of format prepares me to think about what kinds of rebuttals that I might get for the argument that I'm presenting.
Rich, do you use the personification mode at all in ChatGPT so you can make it a little more argumentative? Or I find it's too affirming.
Yeah. So actually, let me go back. So I created this SRPC project, and in the project, let's see if I can bring this up. I can go to project settings, and here I can give some specific instructions for how I want ChatGPT to respond when it's working in this project. So if I had a project about debates or controversial issues in general, I can tell it, anytime that we do this kind of thing, I want you to be very critical. I want you to really probe and, look at all the weaknesses of my argument and be absolutely candid with me about, the quality of my thinking or something like that. And so it will use that as a principle in terms of how it responds within the context of that, within the context of that project. I might have an entirely separate project dealing with how I respond to marital arguments with Marilyn, because I don't necessarily want them to be so critical and, and intense. I'm saying, how can I phrase this as sweetly as possible? So yeah, so you can kind of change those personas depending on what you're looking for. I would recommend doing it in the context of a different project.
Not for the whole chat GPT, not in the settings.
You can do it if you want it everywhere. So if you go back to settings, under not parental control, personalization, here you have custom instructions for the behavior, the style, and the tone preferences for everything that you do with ChatGPT. And frankly, I don't use this because if I want certain kinds of behaviors, I want to target it for specific kinds of efforts. I'm the kind of guy, I like the bottom line on things. So if I did put anything in here, I might say something like, if you ever give me a list, give it in a form of a bullet point or something, just because I like, brevity. But I don't do sort of the global default stuff. I'd rather target it for a specific project that I'm working on. Let me go to my my last tip, and this one I think may be the most important tip that I want to share with you today, and that's the idea that AI can serve as your intelligence accelerator. My recommendation is actually a caution. I'm asking you, please don't use AI exclusively as a wheelchair for your brain. A lot of times it's so easy to use this to write an email or summarize a document or analyze a situation. But if you do this exclusively, my fear is that your own capabilities in this area, your own abilities are going to atrophy. It's kind of like going to the gym and asking somebody else to lift the weights for you. It doesn't really help you grow. And I think the smartest people recognize that AI is really an unprecedented opportunity for you to accelerate your own intelligence. I mean, think about the things that you want to learn and master. You have a 24/7 companion now that can explain concepts to you. In fact, what I recommend, if there's something that you want to learn, ask the AI to explain it to you as if you were a 5-year-old. And then explain it again as if I'm a high school student, and then explain it a third time as if I'm a college graduate, so I understand sort of the underlying theory. Our egos sometimes get in the way of asking questions like this. I wouldn't necessarily go to my family or friends and say, I really don't understand how this works. It's probably something I should understand how it works. I don't understand how it works. Can you explain to me? I might be embarrassed to do that, but I could put that same question into ChatGPT. I could do it in temporary chat mode. Even OpenAI won't know that I'm asking the question. But it gives me an opportunity to start learning about things that, with the enormous amount of knowledge and intelligence behind this, to start learning things that I've always wanted to know. And if I really want to master this new knowledge, I can ask the chatbot to quiz me. Give me a 10-question quiz at the level of a high school student to test whether or not I've really understood these concepts. And, I believe, just like with building muscles, real growth happens sort of at the frontier of your knowledge. It's at the point where you feel stupid, where you feel uncomfortable. You're not really sure what to do next. This is just a very simple and easy way where you don't have to embarrass yourself. You can just simply have this explain to you how these things work, and then ask the AI to test your knowledge. So similar to growing muscles, you're essentially applying progressive overload. You're testing your ability right at the frontier, and it may be uncomfortable, but ultimately I think AI can help you become a larger version of yourself. And that's really a benefit that I don't want you to overlook. I can tell you about all the things it can do for you, but let's talk about some of the things that AI can do to help you become more intelligent. Okay, so that's my take on tips and techniques. I want to close this presentation with just a few headlines. AI in the news, stories from 2026. So in the spirit of what's happened since we last met, I wanted to just share some things that I thought were of particular interest. And I have some fake headlines that I've had AI create for me. This was not a New York Times headline. I just created it with a New York Times banner. It's not, it's fake, it's artificial. I'm telling you this up front. But what happened in February 2026, I don't know if you remember this, there was a standoff between Anthropic and the US Department of Defense because Anthropic refused to allow its models to be used in applications for domestic surveillance or for autonomous weapons. The Pentagon, as a response, threatened to invoke the Defense Production Act, declaring Anthropic a supply chain risk and consequently terminated its $200 million contract. Trump subsequently ordered federal agencies to phase out Anthropic's technology. They began developing proprietary alternatives, and in fact, OpenAI signed a deal with the DoD, which triggered an internal resignation, and for a short time saw Anthropic's Claude chatbot exceed ChatGPT on the App Store. So more people were leaning toward Dario Amodei and Danielle Amodei, who are saying safety is the most important thing, and Anthropic apparently is a company that is trying to stand firm. This is really the first major test of whether a company can hold an ethical red line against both the pressure of a government contract and a national security narrative. Second headline, Mythos rocks cyber world. This is in March 26th. Anthropic described a system that they have developed called Mythos. It had demonstrated an unbelievable ability to discover software vulnerabilities at scale. Early deployments reportedly uncovered more than 10,000 significant vulnerabilities in widely used software systems. You might think initially, hey, this is great, we can plug these holes, we can make the software more secure. But think about it, a system that can find vulnerabilities can also exploit them. And so security experts were divided whether does this really benefit the defenders, or do these same capabilities inevitably empower the attackers? This to me is symbolic of just a basic fundamental dilemma that we face with such advanced technology. I mean, imagine this, if you could develop a technology that was so intelligent that it could find a cure for cancer, but because it's so intelligent, it can also design a virus that will kill us all. Do you want to develop that technology? So Skynet, right, from the movie. It is a frightening prospect. It's a frightening dichotomy. And when I told you earlier, the train ain't going to stop, we don't have very much control over that train. There are going to be companies that will say, hell yeah, we're going to develop that because look at all the great good it can do. The trick is, can we put the kind of controls on it that will protect us from the perils? Another problem, communities are pushing back against the AI data center boom. There's been backlash. This has become a national political issue as citizens are concerned about electricity consumption, water usage, environmental impact. And I didn't think of this before, but just the noise of data centers to provide cooling. Many of these have gas turbines that are incredibly loud, and you can hear them for miles. So the growth of AI may be more ultimately limited less by the software and more by access to these kinds of resources. Here's a headline that is not fake. This is a true headline from Oregon Public Broadcasting. A small Central Oregon town shoots down data center development. This is just last week, or 2 weeks ago, May 27th. The Lapine City Council rejected a proposed 20 megawatt data center that was being proposed for Lapine Industrial Park. The proponents of this idea said where there's going to be 100 construction jobs and 200 permanent jobs, and salaries are going to range from $60,000 a year to $180,000 a year, and Lapine itself stands to gain $1.2 million per year in tax revenue. The opponents were worried about electric rates. They were worried about the impacts on the aquifer around the Lapine area and wildlife habitats. And this project failed. Why? Because of enormous public opposition. The city council meeting on May 27th was absolutely packed. And based on that experience, the council rejected the proposal until there's no data center going in Lapine. Related to this week, this Friday, will become perhaps the largest IPO in the history of the market. SpaceX is going public on NASDAQ. This is going probably to lead to some significant market volatility. Already, we're seeing in the news today depression in the price of technology stock shares, because money managers are starting to sell off stuff so that they have sufficient capital to invest in SpaceX when it goes IPO on Friday. And there's going to be some tremendous volatility in the market very quickly, as not only SpaceX goes IPO, but as you know, Anthropic filed for IPO on June 1st, and OpenAI is announced even just yesterday that they have been trying to keep it secret, but they are also filing with the SEC for IPO. So we have sort of three monster financial events coming up in the next few months, and I think the entire market is going to be affected by the implications of the money flow going into these companies. Interestingly, whatever you think of Elon Musk, there is something to be said about this vision by having SpaceX acquire xAI and combining artificial intelligence with the Starlink systems and all of the sort of the space infrastructure and robotics. What about this idea? We put the data centers in orbit, right? They have unlimited access to solar energy. Cooling is not a problem as long as you face them away from the sun. And you've got a Starlink system that can connect all of the data communications and transfer it back down to Earth. Would that solve our water, environmental, electricity problems here? I don't know. I mean, it's crazy visionary stuff, but these are things that are happening so rapidly that when I come back and talk to you next, it may have already gone on, and we're already seeing that. So there's quite a bit going on. I think perhaps the biggest story, though, is this one, and that is that all four of these AI companies are moving from chatbots to agents. And this is a transition that is going to have enormous implications for workers, implications for productivity, and for employment. These four companies are releasing increasingly capable models. Investors, governments, and enterprises are concentrating on just this handful of these four dominant players. And the companies that win this race may become the most influential technology organizations in the 21st century. There is great promise in AI. There is also great peril. And I wanted to leave you with one recommendation. I thought this documentary was absolutely brilliant. The title is The AI Doc, or How I Became an Apocalyptimist. I guess an optimist in the face of apocalypse. It's natural to be worried about AI. Things are changing so fast, it's hard to keep up, and it seems that we as regular people have very little control of what's going on. And the stakes are substantial. I mean, on the positive side, we can see tremendous advances in medicine, in science, education, technology, perhaps solutions to some of our most pressing problems, like climate change, possibly abundance for all. But on the negative side, mass unemployment, ever increasing inequality, and maybe the specter of human extinction. This documentary addresses both sides of the issue, and I think Daniel Rohrer does just an absolutely brilliant job with exploring both sides of this. And what is especially interesting is that he was able to get Altman and Sabas and Amadei on camera doing interviews. He's a tremendous interviewer, and you can hear from them directly about what they think the future of AI is. I just found this absolutely fascinating. If you have access to the Peacock streaming service, you can find it on Peacock, and I just think it's superb. At the end of this documentary, it provides a call to action, and this is my final slide for today. I want to share this call of action with you because I think there are some things that we can and should do as we look towards our future. Number one, become AI literate. Learn enough about AI so that you understand its capabilities and limitations so you can participate meaningfully in discussions. Number two, demand responsible governance. Support the laws and regulations and oversight mechanisms that promote safe and transparent and accountable development of AI systems. Number three, hold the companies accountable. Ask tough questions about how these systems are built, how are they trained, how are they tested. I mean, to this day, we still don't know what the data set is that a company like OpenAI uses for training. That's all proprietary information. Now, if they go public, will that become more visible? Maybe, maybe not. But we should have some transparency and some insight into that. We should support more work on AI safety. I think Anthropic has really taken a lead in this area, but we should advocate for greater investment on research focused on AI safety. I may be getting this wrong. I didn't write this one down. I read it and I thought it was just brilliant. I think it was Stephen Hawking. I'm not sure. Mid 2015, 2016. Hawking was talking about the future of AI and his concern that we're not doing enough to prepare for it. And he said, it's like, imagine that we got a message from aliens from outer space, and the message was, we are coming and we will be there in 10 years. Do you think we would do anything about it? Hell yeah. We get all the countries together, we kind of figure out we have 10 years before the aliens get here. But AI, we've got the message, it's coming, and we're all like sitting around, we'll keep the lights on, let us know when you arrive. The preparations that we can and should be doing are not being done with as much rigor and energy as perhaps they could be. Let's learn from the social media experience. We should be thinking about AI's potential harms proactively rather than waiting to find out what the negative consequences, before they become widespread. Let's preserve human judgment. Think about AI as an assistant while retaining human responsibility and critical thinking. And continue to engage in civic dialogue. Let's participate in the public conversation, community forums, to help shape how AI can be used in society. Bottom line here is that it's important to become informed, stay engaged, demand accountability, and help shape the rules before AI becomes too powerful and widespread to steer. If we can do this well, I think we will all bear witness to a transformation that truly can benefit us all. And that concludes my talk.